Hi, fellow tea lovers. Settle in, because we've got a story. I'm Nell.
And I'm Rose, and today we're bringing you the tea.
Across Era.
Hello, welcome back.
Hey, dude, what's up?
Well, we've been diving into documentary land and accidentally redoing our stories, like we always do.
Always, always.
I think winter is a great season for just crazy rabbit hole documentaries, because, you're all cuddled in, it's good knitting weather.
Right, I don't want to, I'm not an outside cold weather person. I know some people are. You're cool.
It depends. Honestly, my favorite snow is picturesque through a window.
That's how my Thanksgiving was. But there were plenty of people out in it doing winter sports, which you go, people.
Absolutely. More power to you.
Yep.
I'll salute you from my couch.
So, the Lisa Frank documentary
has just come out. I didn't know a whole lot about Lisa Frank. I was definitely a Lisa Frank kid in a way, like we all were.
Yeah, same.
In our age bracket. But it was something I think my parents thought were kind of like, well, that's kind of dumb for how expensive it is. So they didn't really like buying it. So it was a very once in a while treat kind of thing. I was super into the stickers. Those were way easier to get my hands on.
Yeah, we're like the oldest of the millennials, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I got the Trapper Keeper. I definitely had the one with lips on it at one point, probably 5th grade-ish. It felt so scandalously good.
It felt a little bit naughty, but also categorically wasn't. It was the candiest, sweetest, most innocent thing you could possibly think of. But it suggested naughty, which I think always appeals to people.
I think so. So, yeah, my most treasured Lisa Frank items were the stationery sets. Specifically, I love the stationery paper in the envelopes, but the ones that had like the more cardstock.
Oh, that were their own envelope.
Yeah, they were their own envelope.
Mm-hmm.
I still have one. My dog chewed on it a little bit when she was a puppy, but it's my last one. And I love it. I love those things so much. I love stationery
anyway.
I do too. I have a lot. Yeah.
Because we don't use it for anything. I used to send my rent check with fancy stationery because it was the only actual mail that I sent. Obviously, rent check being mailed is no longer relevant, so I don't even do that anymore.
Right. I still mail letters on stationery every once in a while. I've moved mostly over to like cards I find in interesting places. Yeah, stationery is an additional love of mine.
I love your proclivity for cards anyway.
Thank you. I loved the stickers so much. When they kind of made a little resurgence, I would buy them for my kid. I still have some of them. Like, I probably liked them more than they did.
Well, and also, I don't know if I kind of assumed it was something that everybody did when you get a cool stack of stickers, you stash them somewhere, and then they just sort of live there forever because they're too cool to permanently adhere to anything, and you're always in a state of flux with it. But I'm like, is that more unique to us because of the sticker craze, like collecting times, or is that something that everybody does?
I think it is... I think it comes down to your personality trait. I don't save anything because it's special. I mean, I have a few things I've saved that are special, but like candles, burn them. Mm-hmm. Like fancy face products, use them. I use everything always.
I really agree with that. And I think I'm always kind of constantly fighting with myself over it. Like, no, you must save these things. And then like, no, we're having a real conversation face-to-face self where you bought this nice thing in order to use it, not in order to stare at it until it's no longer usable.
Right. And my sister's a saver. So, I mean, I see how people can feel both ways about it. But I would get a lot of times the brightly colored sticker booklet thingamajiggy of Lisa Frank's where you could put those in there.
Right.
And I love to use them, of course, on envelopes, always. We used to work at the horrible place that cannot be named. And we had a coworker, I'm going to call her Star. Do you remember that Star used to work at one of the Lisa Frank retail stores in Arizona?
Now, to be honest, when you asked me this earlier, I had not remembered that. The place that shall not be named was a very high stress job, and it's a little bit embarrassing in looking back how few things I actually retained outside of my experience there because I was so hyper focused on the stress.
It's a terrible place to work.
So, I had not remembered that.
Lisa Frank levels, but getting there.
But yeah, no, Star was definitely, I can see her working at Lisa Frank. I can see her thriving at Lisa Frank. To be honest, I didn't really remember that they had their own independent stores either. I always saw them at like Target.
Yes, that's correct. And they talk about that in the documentary. However, the documentary, I noticed it focuses more on like the partnerships to grow the brand, like with the Target and Walmart and Kmart.
Right, because that was the ultimate goal.
Yeah. And then the warehouse. But they did open 2 stores in Arizona, and they had plans to expand, but I honestly have no idea if they did or not.
Is Lisa Frank still currently a brand?
Yes. She has not finished the documentary. I have.
Yeah, no. At this particular moment, we're 2 episodes in. That will change.
Yeah, after this, we're going to watch the other 2. So, yes, Lisa Frank is still a brand. But in the documentary, the focus is on a lot of the people who worked in basically like the warehouse, I think.
Okay.
To be honest, I was really hoping they would interview Star. They didn't, which is a bummer.
Interesting person.
Yeah. And
it would have been an interesting interview.
Right. I would have loved what she had to say about it. So from what I remember, she worked in one of the retail stores, and it was generally okay. Cliquish management, which I feel like that happens in retail. And
most
restaurants and all places like that.
Department stores are a weird niche of that.
Right, like customer service facing jobs. Yeah, anyways. And occasionally, though, she or someone else would have to go to the warehouse to get something. Like, I don't even remember what it was. I would guess it would be like, oh, we ran out of the Rainbow Unicorn sticker pack A today, but like it's such a hot item, just run down to the warehouse and get it. I'm guessing this. Okay. I'm making this up.
That seems good.
She's the one who told me Lisa Frank had the kids. What are their names? Forrest
and Hunter Green.
Yeah, the Hunter Green was lost on me as
like a green type.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it was because I didn't realize the last name was Green.
And, I wouldn't have called
well, why wouldn't you be Frank? No. Right.
Pick the strong name.
So, and I remember her telling me that the kids, that she dreaded going to the warehouse or when someone would come by with the kids by the store because the kids were awful.
Well, they're raised with privilege.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
Right. You're special. You have...
Nobody told you no is the important thing.
Very famous cartoon animals named after each of you.
Right.
Right. So I don't blame small children for being bad. I mostly blame their parents. It's not always that way, but you know.
Someone has raised them with that large ass ego.
Right. And I do remember Star saying, like, Lisa Frank is a nightmare. Like, she was terrifying to work for. She was mean. She yelled a lot. And at that time, I was just like, dang.
And it feels surprising, but then, to be honest, all of the happiness industries really feel like they are that way.
Oh,
the people that
so
have
much.
learned to monetize, codify, and make a business out of something that creates happiness always gets twisted into this nightmarish stuff.
All social media celebrities.
Time.
Right. I remember her telling me about it, and then... It's been almost 10 years, I think, since I even worked there. And she left before I did.
Right. So, I mean, that was a while ago. Well, I think because the height of what they were talking about in the documentary was, I think, ending at like about 2005.
Yes. I think the stores and whatnot, I don't know when they shut down. It did seem like she was kind of on, like, at the time Star worked there, like, the whole thing was kind of, like, on its way out.
The end point of the trajectory is always the scary part to accidentally have walked into.
So, between what I recall learning about Lisa Frank a decade or so ago, and now, you know, there's been some Lisa Frank collaborations, like, there was the Lisa Freak Halloween collaboration, and I honestly thought that I think it was a hoodie, a black hoodie, with, like, neon lit tombstones, and it said Lisa Freak on it. I thought it was super cool, but I have a lot of hoodies, and I didn't buy it. And I'm glad I didn't now. So, in the documentary, like, we find Lisa Frank is not in the documentary. Just first of all.
Yeah, her only contribution is the same quote that they put up at the end of each episode. It's a boilerplate lawyer speak.
Right, it ends with like the best is yet to come. Yeah.
Which is creepy without context, if that's the only thing you're telling people about this.
Especially after this documentary.
Yeah. We
learn in it that she ended up marrying someone who worked for and then with her, I guess.
It kind of her partner. It doesn't seem like it was always an equal partnership, but the power structure wasn't stable. Like, I think they were trading places a lot.
Right. Because it was like after they had this huge over-the-top wedding, the kids came along and she started staying home more and doing work from home, which do your thing.
I'm a huge fan of, if I have not mentioned. Being absent from your namesake office does have effects, whether or not you're actually able to do that effectively without creating this environment of, oh God, the boss is coming in today. I think that's a hard dance. I do.
Agree. Her now ex-husband says something along the lines of like, there was a lot of power up for grabs. And then the producer says, oh, did she give it to you? Or I don't know what she says.
Did she give you power? And he's like, no, of course I took it.
Yeah. So he comes across,
Yeah.
And then he also says it's a mistake to marry your business partner, which, I mean...
That's probably good advice.
It is. I think it is.
I think in general, dating in the workplace is just, don't do it is good advice. But I say that as a person who met my partner of 17 years in my workplace. So I can't really genuinely give that advice. Just tread cautiously.
Right. Like there's always room for drama. So, But anyways, and I know this sucks, but it is what it is. If you work for another company, and in this case as an artist, they hired many artists, what you create at that company is not yours anymore.
What killed me was when she was talking about, she was a concept designer. She was coming up with the actual base level art for this $1 million company. And while it was $1 million company and her creative ideas are the structure upon which that is built, she's making $8.25 an hour. That floors me. That makes no sense to me because your intellectual property is worth so much more than that.
Right.
But only if you value it at that level, because no one will offer you that value.
That's the part I have a problem with.
Maybe you should see the gestures I'm making right now. I talk with my hands. You can't see it.
Do it. Maybe one day we'll go on YouTube. Nah, just kidding. I mean, we are on YouTube, just not our faces. With IP, which is your intellectual property, something you create while you're working for a company belongs to them. And that part, in general, is okay. I say this because I have to do this in my job all the time. Dear whoever, thank you so much for all of the things you've given us. However, we see that you would like to give us money to do something, but you want to own that do something at the end. I understand that seems fair and reasonable, but as a government entity, we can't do that.
It's not happening.
Yeah, so that's a big part of my job.
Yeah.
So I understand that, but you cannot be $1 million company and pay the people minimum. Well, it was probably not minimum wage back then.
Yeah, no, that wasn't minimum wage by any means back then, but $8.25.
That lady said she qualified for food stamps.
Right, while being a concept artist. If she was doing that at Disney, she would have a house.
Working 15 hours a day or more. And
Oh, the padlock thing?
One guy they interviewed said when he worked there, they started wanting them to work later and later, which is weird because they also switch some employees. Normally, you would switch an hourly person to salaried and be like, now you got to work 1,000 hours a week. Huh?
Yeah, that's the standard way to screw somebody. Like switching someone to hourly and then extending their hours, that doesn't make sense to me. But it doesn't really feel like that. It doesn't make sense, decision.
But it also seemed like they lowered their salaries enough that these people still weren't bringing home the same amount of money.
Right.
So this guy, he's like, I can't work through dinner. I have diabetes, I think he said, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, yep,
or you die.
Yeah. So he was like, oh, well, I'm going to go because, I have diabetes living. And, I enjoy living.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did. And then they cut to someone going, oh, yeah, I heard about this guy who had diabetes and he needed to leave to take his insulin or eat or something. And then he was never seen again. And they cut back to the bro and he's like, yeah, they fired me for that.
Yeah.
And then they go to the HR lady
who did the firing of everyone.
And she's like, I would never fire someone for needing to eat.
That's illegal.
That's illegal. I would fire them for not working the hours we asked.
Oh, and for their attitude.
Girl.
Oh, she's still in HR mode. She is. She lived that life. Like I don't know if I can talk about somebody's morality that I've never met in person. But that was her living, was blanking out that piece of herself that would feel bad about that. And so, I mean, I don't know if you get that back.
I don't either. And she was really attractive and she had this enormous smile that after you hear her talk, now you're like, oh, that's kind of terrifying.
You're right, that crocodile
But
smile.
she was gleeful when she talked about how many people she'd fired. The producer said, how many? And she was like, oh, I couldn't count. And they said, like, over 100. And she was like, oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, with that kind of turnover, and she's the only HR person, which in and of itself, having a singular HR person for a multi-location company is so bad. That is such a red flag.
It's not just waving, it's whipping in the wind.
Probably towards you, have eye coverage.
Yeah.
Right? It's a terrible thing.
Don't.
You need to have larger support structures the second you start branching out that much. Stop buying the Benzes and the big house before you actually protect the structure of the thing that you've built.
Right. One guy said that he was just absolutely not, and left and quit. So good for him.
Good for him.
One guy got fired because he was accused of freelancing during work time, which at that point in time, I bet he was not.
I guarantee he was
terrified environment.
Well, but even if it wasn't just a fear thing, he was not moonlighting or doing any freelancing work within that office because you wouldn't want to have that fight.
Absolutely.
If something that you had done made you enough money to get out of that situation, you better believe that you are protecting that.
Yeah,
you're working on it at home.
And if you're not, you should start immediately. It seemed like one of those jobs where the people that they hired were like single moms, artists who were really good but not getting paid.
People that needed a chance in order to achieve an artistic dream.
Right, and it was like they dangled that dream in front of them and then manipulated the heck out of them.
Having that kind of idealism about what you do with your life is not a bad thing, but it does make you vulnerable.
Right.
And we've both had that experience.
Yeah, we have. And one lady said that she had 2 kids. She's a single mom. She's working 15 hours a day, but felt like she needed to give more. Not to her kids, to Lisa Frank. And I don't think she's a bad mom. I think she was just sucked in.
No, because in order to feel like you're doing a good job, if there's no atmosphere of approval, you're yelling into a vacuum. You're always going to give more than you really had to give because you're getting nothing back in terms of emotional value. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It does. One lady even said, when Lisa Frank was really happy with you, it felt like you were in the sunshine. And when she wasn't, you were just immediately shut out. It was black skies, sad looks over the shoulder. Someone called her, or both of them actually, her and her husband, a parent you're desperate to please or something like that.
Yes.
Ouch.
Mom's happy or mom's mad. Mom and dad are fighting.
Oh, it was so awkward.
That we're not a company, we're a family just sounds like such a good thing.
Nope.
And it is not. It's your company is not your family.
Right.
It shouldn't be. You need to have separation in order to have healthy life balance. You can have wonderful, close relationships with your coworkers. It just exists in a different space and shouldn't be the same type of relationship that you have with your mother.
Especially when there is a difference in the power dynamics.
Yes.
That's a big issue.
And it's not even necessarily something people notice when there's a huge power imbalance. It's just a thing that does affect your interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
If you're on the top side of that power imbalance, then things look pretty sunshiny. You don't necessarily think to look for problems. If you're on the underside, problems are just where you live, so of course you notice them more.
Don't get me started. And they call the HR lady the enforcer.
Yeah, which is so true.
And the producer tells her that, and she's like, oh, maybe not. And then she says that she thought someone she was firing was going to hit her. And the producer says, did anyone try to help you? And she was like, no, I guess they didn't like me.
Yeah, that's not that surprising. And it sucks to have that job. There's somebody like that in every company that it's their thing to have to be like, I'm sorry. And those things happen. But
this wasn't it.
This was not that.
This was a very, very, very bad situation.
You're participating in something that you could absolutely see what's wrong with it.
Right? And some of the people that they've interviewed so far, up until the 4th episode, I was like, I just didn't really know. But then the more stuff that came out as they moved outside of direct employees, I feel like that validated a lot of the testimonies. Okay, well, we're going to watch the other 2 episodes and catch you on the other side.
Back and forth.
We're back. We finished episodes 3 and 4.
So many
so many
conflicting
things.
They really did a good job burying the lead, like over and over and over again, which, you know, reality TV documentary, that's their job.
It was set up perfectly because, so episode 3 introduces the son, Forrest Green. Forrest comes in and we find out, and I didn't know this, I guess he releases this social media video saying that his dad is the real creator and everything behind Lisa Frank, and it would never, or Lisa Frank the brand.
His dad definitely emotionally got him in the divorce.
Definitely. You can tell. And, you know, when the divorce was dragging on, he was like, what, 10 when it all started, I think he said?
Yeah, something like that. That's
so very formative, you know, during his
I don't think it's a good age for it.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So he says that the video went more viral than he expected, so he took it down the next day. And he says something like, because I didn't want my mom to sue me.
Which sounds dramatic.
It did. It sounds
like
dramatic.
Something a rich kid was like, oh man, my mom's going to sue me. But just like in watching the entirety of the thing, you go back and, oh yeah, your mom would sue you.
Yeah, and the producer even goes, do you think your mom would really sue you? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so my belief is that based on all of this alleged evidence, that seems to be correct. So I gotta be honest though, even by the end of episode 3, I still wasn't totally sold on the dad, Mr. Green, and the son, Forrest, were reliable narrators, because we all, and as we live our lives, we can all tell what happened during the exact same event, and it would all be different, you know? So I did expect that kind of bias, which is normal.
They both presented as not really terribly sympathetic characters at first, too. No. I don't know if that was kind of editing a little bit.
I'm sure. I think maybe it was, because the dad came off as maybe a little arrogant, and
he really felt like an 80s guy, like Futurama-style 80s guy, like, oh, my only regret is I have bonitis 80s guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's not true. I still get that vibe off of him, but it's not the complete picture, which was surprising.
Right, so in this documentary, a lot of people get a really good character arc, except for Lisa Frank, because Lisa Frank, the human, is a big mystery.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of photos of her, not a lot of interviews.
I think that's worked for and against her.
Right. Episode 4 tied it up for me. Like, I have notes like you would not believe on episode 4.
Just kept telling pause.
I did. And I also want to just remind everyone that it's alleged, and I wrote the word allegedly a lot in my notes.
Oh, and yeah, just blanket, I feel like we are abiding by the legal warnings that were given on the documentary itself.
Yeah.
By referring to them here. Go ahead and watch the documentary and read them, and
right.
Those things are all true.
Episode 4 opens with Peter and Jessica, these two entrepreneurs who have created glamour doll cosmetics. This lady, Jessica, she is like super pretty and glamorous looking, and she says, you know, nowadays 8-year-olds get to go to Sephora, but I had to do like the CVS and Walgreens and ask my mom to buy me something, which was so relatable.
I was like, TG&Y?
In 2015, her and Peter formed their business, and they want to have like quality cosmetics at a really good price. And I guess in the beginning, everything was $5 or under, which made me wish I'd heard about them. But
yeah, right. That's an amazing business model if you want to just create accessibility.
But some of the products they showed, they were cute. They were also like aiming to be cruelty-free and vegan cosmetics, which is awesome.
Appreciate it.
And they get this first like collaboration or contract, I don't remember what it was, with a place called Joyce Leslie in New Jersey. And Jessica says this is where everyone goes to get their hoe outfit.
I love that so much.
So this collab they do with Joyce Leslie, Jessica says it had them coming close to making a small profit. And there's like this cute like paper doll-ish montage that they do throughout the whole documentary, and they're saying how they would have like their boyfriend, their parents, people just helping them move product. Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's any small business when you're getting off the ground. You're taking help anywhere you can.
Absolutely. So then she says her and Peter are hanging out at the kitchen table, and they're like, who should we try to do a collab with? And she goes, remember Lisa Frank? And they're like, oh yeah, haha. And they just start looking online, and they're like, that she would be perfect because, you know, animals, we're vegan, we're cruelty-free, she's animals. And, you know, people love the nostalgia. The nostalgia brings in, like, the older demographic. So this is between 2015 and 2017. they're like, how would we even get in touch with her? And they literally start cold calling the phone numbers they find related to anything with Lisa Frank. Somebody answers the phone at one of them, and they're like, yeah, this is Lisa Frank, and we're still open. And Peter, the collaborator in this business, he gives them a pitch, and then it's really quick. Lisa Frank's like, yes, we'd like to do a collab. And from that point, they said it was like 4 weeks or a month or so.
It was a super quick contract turnaround.
I have so many things to say about it, and I'm going to preface it with this. I don't have a law degree. I just happen to have a job where I have to read a lot of terms and conditions. So even just like the glimpses of the contract they showed on the screen, oh my gosh. The percentages that they paid, the monthly or I guess the quarterly installments that they paid.
The guarantee of a certain level of income.
They didn't have anything like in their contract about this contract isn't going to end until the product's delivered, and the product is going to be delivered by X date unless both parties get,
Nowhere in any of the legalese does it require Lisa Frank as an entity to fulfill their end of the contract. It's wild.
It wasn't contractually required. The lesson from this is anyone handing you their legal template, let's say one day you meet a celebrity and they're like, you can come to my party, but you have to sign an NDA. Remember that is in their favor.
Right. And anything not referred to in the document is totally allowed. But I don't think they felt like they could negotiate. They were starstruck from the start, and that was what hamstrung them more than anything, because they weren't treating her as an equal partner. They were treating her as like this artistic god that had, been such a part of their childhoods.
Yeah, so Jessica says, I'm a girl boss. She's a girl boss. Men don't take me seriously in meetings. She said she started wearing glasses to all these like collaboration meetings because people didn't take her seriously. And she's like, I think Lisa's going to understand this exactly, and like we're going to get along great. They have their first meeting, and then they go out to coffee afterwards. And I wrote down Jessica's quote, Lisa Frank is pissed.
And it's so wild how much the tone shifted, apparently. Once she was in control, at least she being Lisa Frank, once she was in control of the room.
The tone allegedly shifted so hard. Jessica and Peter, I guess, both have like some prototypes they've just been working on. The example they show is like a cute makeup brush, and it had the traditional like animal print background and cute animal on it, but it was a little updated.
Kind of like still the same very deep jewel tone rainbow, though, which I think is pretty emblematic of Lisa Frank.
Yeah, like if you looked at that brush, you would know it's Lisa Frank. She says Lisa doesn't like it. Her opinion is that Lisa is angry with her. And she's like, no, I have this pattern, and this is what I want to use. And it's kind of like a repeat pattern of like, the unicorn, the dogs, whatever.
It looks like slightly disappointing pastel wallpaper.
Yeah, it's very wallpapery. And if you've bought anything Lisa Frank lately, you know what I mean. I was phone case shopping, and I was on Casetify, and they have some Lisa Frank ones, and I went to look at them, but one option was a pattern, and I didn't like that pattern. The other option was like the golden retrievers, and that was very cute, but of some other dog ones I found, it wasn't my favorite. So when she was saying that, I was like, okay, that does explain a few things, because a couple of months ago, there was a Halloween collab, and it was like Lisa Freak. And the t-shirt was so cute. It was black with like these neon outlines of tombstones. And it said Lisa Freak, and it was dripping, like the words were like dripping paint. I don't know. It was super cute. One of my friends got the wallet and a hoodie. And I do like them, but after this, I'm all...
No, I don't want to buy it anymore. When Lisa Frank turned on Jessica in that coffee meeting, Jessica was assuming this solidarity because in nice circles, we support each other a lot more professionally as women than I think we have in the past.
I agree.
And Lisa Frank represents a time when we didn't. She came up in a time where you either liked being cutthroat or you felt like you had to, but you had to cut out your competition because being an anomaly in business was the only way for a woman to succeed. You had to surprise people or you couldn't exist.
Yeah, some of the people I work with, they became like doctors and researchers in the 70s and 80s as women. And yes, they're still working. They don't retire. And they are dedicated to their work.
Yeah.
You do that because you love it. Yeah. Some of the women, though, they can be really mean. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, my whole goal in life is to be a girl's girl.
Right.
Like, I'm here for
mutual support. But the thing is, I think when that's your constant goal, if you've been living in an environment where you've kind of been achieving that goal, at least on a semi-regular basis, assuming that other people also have that goal in mind can kind of hamstring you. I think it can be.
That's what happened
dangerous. To them. And this is what happened to them, yeah.
Basically, Lisa Frank allegedly tells Peter that she's only talking to him. She's not talking to Jessica. Don't include her on any emails. And Jessica's like, hello, I'm the face of this company. Like, it's my business also. And, okay, let me read you some of the quotes I wrote down. Jessica says, if this was a relationship, this is a red flag. And then she's referring to an article that was posted on the website Jezebel, same one from the Jezebel's Ghost episode, about Lisa Frank and all the problems and things going on. And she goes, we read it. We saw the red flags. We just thought we'd be different. They decide to do a Kickstarter to raise money. They have entered into this contract with Lisa where they are paying her, what was it to start, $25,000 a quarter? Mm-hmm. Plus, I think almost like 15% of
actual sales.
Yeah, so
it was a guaranteed lump sum income for the license, but then it was also a gigantic percentage of sales.
So this Kickstarter goes viral, and it raised, what did they say it raised? Like $450,000
Yeah,
something?
it was quite close to $500,000.
Yeah. And for the donation tiers, like the more you donated, the more you got. Mm-hmm. And so they had put up on their Kickstarter that they wanted to have like these products out to people from the September to December timeframe. Mm-hmm. So apparently a lot of people were like, Christmas present, which, I mean, I could see myself doing that. So Peter says, knowing what I know now about how Lisa Frank operates, that was ambitious. They said,
that's so sad. That was ambitious.
They said that they had worked with the same artists and designers like the whole life of the business so far, mm-hmm. but people were quitting left and right that nothing they put out would make her happy enough. Mm-hmm. And the people who worked in her offices in the first 3 episodes talk about that a lot
really
too.
Similar story. Yeah.
Jessica says, I realize I'm getting bullied by Lisa Frank. Put that on my tombstone.
For a 90s girl, that's like the ultimate betrayal.
Right.
Right? That's like R.L. Stine haunting you from the beyond.
Right. So this was the immediate point where I was like, Husband Green and Forest Green are suddenly so much more credible to me.
So many people went in on the vegan leather makeup case, and she nitpicked it to death. It was just yet another design fight.
And it looked so good by the end.
Good. No, to be honest, all of the little nitpicky things that were happening, I was like, I'm here for it. I understand that maybe it's exacting and it's definitely irritating to not just make your design choices in the beginning and just stay on timeline. But it looked really great. And then apparently she contacted them and just said, scrap the whole thing, we're doing it in vinyl. You're like, no, people have already ordered things expecting a particular type of material, and you can't just bait and switch that.
Oh, but she had an answer for that.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
No, but plastic is vegan. It's the same thing. Like, okay, all right. If you're talking about actual like chemical processes, it's made of pretty similar materials, but it is not the same thing. You can't market it the same. It's not the same texture, feel, design. It doesn't have the same wear patterns. It's just not what people went in expecting.
No. And I got, like we said, that bag was cute. I'd like that bag.
I would have owned that bag.
I know. I'm going to be like,
I would buy white anything, and I would own that bag.
Call me up, and I like that bag. Yeah, I could never put it in my bag. According to Peter and Jessica, Lisa Frank goes, like, I don't really care that we told them that. We're using this vinyl.
But Lisa Frank did not seem to understand the concept of working for the goals that anybody else had set. It was her ideas, whatever those ideas happened to be in that day. And that was the story that just got consistently told, just no matter who was telling it.
The timeline wasn't spelled out in the agreement, which is, I think, a big
red
problem.
Flag, don't sign it.
And the parts that maybe were in the agreement, there was no like remedy for what would happen if it was broken. There's no product being made. People are quitting left and right. Nothing's been agreed on. people are donating their money and
are starting to be publicly angry because influencers were what drove their Kickstarter to non-influencers. And so they're a very loud party to get angry at you.
Right. And then Lisa Franks apparently finds out that Peter is Greek.
Mm-hmm. And in a weirdly racist move, has him arrange a Greek vacation for her son's 18th birthday. Make sure to do it up. I want to make sure he has the best time ever. And Peter is not her employee. He's not work for her in any capacity. He doesn't have anything on his resume, to my knowledge, that screams travel agent or assistant. And the assumption is just
they footed the whole bill.
And they footed the whole bill. They were paying
she's
her.
Still getting her quarterly payments.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get to Greece, and it's like everything has to be like presidential suite, 5-star, drivers, photographers.
Not that presidential suite. I meant the other one. Yeah. Change rooms.
Yeah. It's
the most Queen of Hearts move.
It was wild.
Yeah.
So I guess when questioned about it later on, she was like, oh, that was a business trip.
Oh, and it wasn't just, it was a business trip. It was supposed to be a business trip. Peter told me we were going to go tour factories, and he did not fulfill his obligations on that trip. So he goes this above and beyond for her luxury yacht vacation, and then gets nailed in court for it for not taking her on a factory tour that he didn't know about.
So then we're getting to the end of their contract they have with Lisa Frank, and there's an option for renewal. But both parties have to agree to it, and they're basically terrified she's not going to agree to it, and she's got zero product at this point to give to anyone. They're hiring consultants left and right, and people who've been in the cosmetics industry, they said, for like decades or more, are telling them they've never seen anything like this, it's unfixable, and they need to bail.
Mm-hmm. That's the most sane advice they're getting from all corners, is you need to get out.
And I can understand if you're in the middle of it. It sounds horrible, but let's be real, the business would have ended the same way anyways. Lisa Frank Inc. agrees to renew the contract, but dadgum do the terms change.
I mean, I can't believe they signed it twice. I'd have bailed. Even after all the advice, if you weren't going to bail, when you see the new contract, bail.
The driving factor, it seemed to me, behind them not bailing was that people online were angry, dragging them through the mud, and they were scared to say anything, which I understand. I've had that experience with something I bought once and was like, why hasn't this been fulfilled? Come to find out there was a lawsuit.
Right. I always figured if you're investing in a Kickstarter, you are gambling in a way. There's always a possibility that something's going to happen. That's why they're on Kickstarter and not on Amazon.
Right.
And that's okay. You understand that when you're going in.
Yeah. And like, it would have been great if they would have said something sooner. They should have, but we'll get to that in a second. So at this point, they said that they had sent Lisa Frank Inc. about $475,000, zero completed product. Jessica said that at this point, like, Kickstarter backers started like friending family and friends on social media and just being like, where's my stuff? I ordered this for my kids. You've ruined Christmas.
Disappointment. But you cannot stalk people's parents because you didn't get your eyeliner. Like, that's crazy.
So as this social media, like, outpouring of annoyance and rage and disgust happens, Lisa Frank terminates the contract. They're like, this clause says terminate, we're terminating. And by the time she had terminated, one of them, I don't remember if it was Jessica or Peter, said they had paid almost $800,000 to her. And then this Lisa Frank note starts dropping online that basically says, we were not involved in this Kickstarter. Like, we knew nothing. Leave us alone. It was all glamour dolls.
Yeah, they screwed us just as much as they screwed you. We're sorry.
It's so wild, right? And so Jessica, she's like basically the face of glamour dolls. So, you know, the bankruptcy comes for her.
Yeah.
And she even says, she's like, Lisa Frank burned her own fan base.
Yeah, she did. And then you blamed them.
Yeah. And then there's this lady named Amina. She goes by Tassel Fairy online.
Separate, super sad story. Not even separate, but just, you know.
Yeah, and she is like a very pastel rainbow themed person. not soft pastels, though, like these beautiful bright pastels.
Right. Pastel in terms of texture. Like, she had a lot of really cool gradient work going on. Her whole cachet was Cloudland and Happiness Land. I think it was called Cloudland.
Cloudland, yeah.
But yeah, but it was, that was her cash cow, and it was a really amazing installation. I mean, and it was her house. She lived in her installation. It was her.
Lisa Frank starts following her on Instagram, which is, of course, wonderful. You know, you grow up with that as a kid, and you remember the nostalgia and how cool. And she sends you direct messages, or somebody using her social media sends these direct messages, how much they like your stuff and you're inspiring, da-da-da-da. And then it goes silent. And then, I mean, it says, all of a sudden, one day she's getting, like, friends and family congratulating her on her pop-up, which is in a building across the street from her house.
Right. It's basically her entire aesthetic. Lisa Frank stamped on it and partnered with Hotels.com to do this collaboration event for $200 a night. They've taken her personality, put the veneer of Lisa Frank over it. And I just have to say that has to be the most devastating way to find out about somebody thieving your intellectual property.
100%.
People calling to congratulate you because it's so much your work that they've assumed.
Right. And then she gets evicted. And isn't it like the day the collaboration is publicly announced?
Her eviction date was either the day or the week.
So
to get rid of them.
Amina's talking about in 2020 now. And, you know, she's like, Black Lives Matter was happening. And a lot of people were, you know, posting that dumb square of black on social media. And the Lisa Frank Inc. account did. Right. And I mean, it was like, no.
You can't destroy black collaborators and then come back around like, we support black collaboration. Right. That's horrifying.
So Amina calls her out on her post. And the Lisa Frank account responds with saying, this is an opportunistic person trying to take the focus from Black Lives Matter to herself.
Lisa Frank did the same thing she did with every other fight they showed on the whole documentary. She took what she was doing to someone, projected it back onto them, and was the louder voice in the room, so everyone agreed.
And then there's a Lisa Frank collab with the makeup brand. I think it's Morphe. Like, it looks like it should be pronounced Morphe.
No, they said Morphe.
Yeah, I think it's Morphe.
Yeah.
And like, I've seen their stuff. One of the first designs is the Trapper Keeper eyeshadow palette, and Jessica from Glamour Doll shows us their mock-up.
It is the exact same, not just design, but the exact same artwork.
But again, the other one's cuter. It's wild.
It's redone in a less cute fashion that for some reason was more palatable, or somebody talked her into being reasonable, or who knows, because, I mean, if that kind of con worked once, I don't know why Lisa Frank wouldn't turn around and do it again.
I think Morphe is more established.
Better lawyers.
Yeah. And get this, Lisa Frank's like, you know what? It's Glamour Doll's fault that the Kickstarter didn't work out. And the court eventually ruled in Lisa Frank's favor.
It's mind-blowing.
It's wild. So this was my thought. I'm like, Glamour Dolls gave Lisa Frank the funds to, allegedly, get rich enough again to, allegedly, ruin them. And then at the end of every episode, there's like a thing that says, you know, nobody from Lisa Frank wanted to be interviewed, but they gave us the statement. And the statement ends with, stay tuned, the best is yet to come.
It's so snide
in that context. And there's been some activity in the Arizona factory, I guess.
It's been kind of renovated, no longer half plywood.
It comes in when we have the art and the artist conversation, because, you know, if they make something cute, I might buy it. I don't know if I want to send my money to Lisa Frank for all the things she's allegedly done. Like, I don't need any Lisa Frank makeup, but I wouldn't mind some more phone case designs. But what I'd really like is that stationery again.
Oh,
the vegan leather bag. Look.
Do the vegan leather bag, dude.
Have allegedly stolen all the other things, so make that vegan leather bag.
It will become a sign and a symbol.
It will be. It's white. Do you know how hard it's going to be to keep clean?
Thank you for listening to our musings. I hope you get a chance to watch it, because I think it was really well done.
Yeah, it's really good. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.